The market may be a lot of things, but boring is definitely not one of them. Google, massive volume yesterday on a massive move after a massive run. Nvidia falling as a result of it because of Google potentially digging into Nvidia's market share. We'll talk a little bit about that, mostly focus on the technicals. How high could Google go with this climb? How far could Nvidia fall on news like this one? And then also, what in the world do the volumes have to do with anything when we look at the ETFs, and then compared to what we saw with Google's move, for example. So a little bit of a lesson, if you will, on volumes. So you'll see on the SPY chart here that I have on the screen for you, these are the volumes that are down here, and the past looks like 7 trading days, besides yesterday, we're actually fairly high, all above average over the last 20 days, but yesterday below average volume for what took us up about 1.5%. When we go to the Qs, once again below average volume, 2.5% up when we look at the Qs with the recovery that it made, but once again, below this blue line that you see coming across here, that's that below average volume. Big move. This could be a sign of a slightly thinly traded market for us. And when there's not a lot of trading and get those sort of big moves, that volatility that you have here, that's something that, now mind you, it could still be bullish. Usually the week of Thanksgiving, especially Black Friday, historically has been bullish for markets. So we definitely want to keep that in mind. But we do want to watch those volumes as well, because that does not support the conviction in the move that we saw. And that doesn't mean it can't keep moving that way. It just means that we have less evidence of continuing the move. When we look at IWM, once again, below average volume, especially compared to the 2 previous days. But again, the last 7 days were much more elevated volume, much more heavily traded. And it wasn't the lowest of volumes, but it certainly was the below the past 20 days worth of average volume for what we're getting. Not even these minor peaks that we saw in here did we match up with. For the trading volume that we got yesterday for IWM, it is still encouraging that we're up above those moving averages, the 50 EMA, for example, and the 5 and the 13, like I talked about in my previous video. That information is not invalidated just by volume. My bigger point that I want to talk about will come along when I show you what Google's volume looked like and the move that it's making in the pre-market this morning. First, let's stop by Bitcoin real quick, because Bitcoin, the volume yesterday was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't explosive. Now, mind you, Thursday was the day that we had fairly explosive volume, very much above average, about double the average of the last 20 days. And that was also that long bottom wick that you saw there, which can show that we're about at the bottom, at least temporarily, and we could push out from there. And then I talked about the importance of the moving averages. Yesterday's volume was above average, but not excitingly so for Bitcoin. So it's still a game of the moving averages for Bitcoin. We still need to hold on to that 5. We closed above it yesterday. Today has its work cut out for it for making sure that it holds on to that 5. We were able to push on and test the ceiling of that 13-day EMA, which is around 91,000. All right, let's get into the volume on Google here. Check this out. There we go. Now, mind you, it's not the most explosive volume that we've seen recently. It's still actually declining off of some of these bigger peaks that we have, but still, relatively speaking to how it has been trading, you can actually see an increase in that volume with the news that it has. Now, there are some things that we want to pay attention to. One, prior to the news, I thought that we would peak out right around 324, as I have my top line on here. That resistance starting about 315, and that 324 I thought was the line in the sand. In the pre-market this morning, we're at 330. If we drop down to the hourly chart, you can actually see us dancing right along that 324 line that we have along here that we kept on coming back and retesting. Is the floor there. Now, mind you, if that floor holds, I think that Google, on news like this, if the market rally is going to continue, we actually have not a lot of resistance until we get up to, first of all, 367. And then north of that, we have a ton of resistance from 381 all the way up to about 386. So to me, this would be that ceiling that we would be looking for if the market stays incredibly bullish, if this news continues to be strong for Google. Now, in terms of its TPUs, the TPUs are good for certain applications of the large language model training, but it's not as broadly used as NVIDIA's technology. So it's not a direct competitor with NVIDIA's hardware, but it does dig into a bit of what NVIDIA's hardware can do. It takes away a little chunk of that market, or potentially takes away a chunk of that market. And that's what the market is worried about right now for NVIDIA, but celebrating for Google. And that's why we see the big move that we do. So I do want to learn a little bit more about the tensor processing units, the TPUs. I did look up about them probably about 2 years ago or so, read up about them and stuff, but I got to dust off that information, go back through them. Nvidia is very much about that general purpose computing with their GPUs, and they are still going to be very, very dominant with where they're at right now. So it doesn't mean that they're absolutely going to crater. This volume that we got, by the way, so we gapped up on big volume. I said that this was about volume. Google's price gapping up on big volume usually leads to another day of bullish movement. So what are we getting so far? Where there's the gap up on big volume in the pre-market. So far, we're up at about 330. We could have that gap up again. I wouldn't be surprised if we filled that gap before making another move in the other direction. 324.56, it looks like it is still that line that we want to watch. And over time, we'll see how this week and how Q4 pans out for us. We just might hit that 385, 386. I will say one thing that's concerning about Google is this run that it's been on. So, man, oh man, all the way from 141, this thing has over doubled in that time. And for a relatively mature company to make that move is pretty incredible. Now, mind you, we did have this sort of megaphone pattern. Let me try and drop some of these technicals because I realize that that's probably busy for a lot of you. So, take down the rectangles. There we go. Take that down for you. That down. And that one. There we go. This is usually a sign of increased volatility, and the way that you break out of it is usually the direction that you continue, and that's what we got from that. So we came down and tested that support once, twice, then we came up to resistance, broke out of it, and then, well, party on Google stock. So moving over to Nvidia. Nvidia has a line down at 167. We could potentially touch it. We'll see how the market treats this sort of news during those regular trading hours. It might coincide with this previous bottom that we have over here. It might also pull down as far as the 200 EMA. The bargain bin prices on Nvidia I still think are at 153 and 137. That's if the market cares enough. The market could also choose to buy this dip. It could be like, oh no, big fear pre-market, and then it could push up and move skyward anyway. So we could be watchful for that. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm actually leaning towards the side that Nvidia's price could soften a little bit, at least near term, during this news, that it's a little bit of a fear moment, if you will, for Nvidia, and it's a little bit more of a euphoria moment right now for Google. So we'll see how they normalize over time, because most likely they will. Now, I do think that Google, if the market continues to climb, Google could also continue to climb. If Nvidia does happen to fall, but the market climbs, Nvidia is probably also going to make that climb back up again. It doesn't automatically just become not a very good company and not very competitive. It'll still be something that will be very, very good, most likely, for the staying power that it has over time. And I still remain bullish on Nvidia. So, guys, that's my take that I have for you. You can let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd absolutely love to hear from you. Otherwise, I'll see you over in the Discord. Links down in the description. 3-day free trial, I believe, is still active. Also, Stockmo Academy, use the link down in the description for that. Code word doctor will save you $400. The new crypto course just dropped, I believe. The discount code of doctor, DOCTOR, works for that as well. And then you can also check out the bundle options as well. And the discount code also works on those bundles. So guys, thank you very much for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning gets earning. I'll see you next video.